Welcome to Shomach Shav on the Daf. We're holding in Zevachim Daf Memches. The Gemara throughout the Daf teaches us how do we know that Korbanos, the Kodesh Kadashim, need to be shechted b'tzafon in the north. And it is as clear in the Gemara, the main place where it says to do tzafon, to do the north, is in Korban Olah, and specifically by a ben soin, by a sheep, by a goat. And then from there, the Gemara learns to a ben bakar, meaning to oilah which comes from a bigger animal like a bull. And after that, the Gemara learns from the oilah to other korbanos like chatos and like asham. So we find in Divrei Rabbeinu two mahalchim to understand why the tzafon is mentioned specifically by a oilah and specifically by a ben soin. The Meshech Chochmah in the beginning of Vayikra explains that the reason we have tzafon is because it's a remez to Akedas Yitzchak. He quotes the Medrash that says that tzafon reminds us of Akedas Yitzchak, shetzafun afara lezikoron lifnei Hashem tamid. The heifer of Akedas Yitzchak is always in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzafun is hidden in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why does this have to do with tzafon? So the Meshech Chochmah explains, based on the Gemara Ba'abas Daf Chofei, that says the Ruach Tzfayin is Psucha, the northern side of the world is open. And Meshech Chochmah explains, what does it mean? It means that we have Bechira Chavshis. You have free will to choose to do good or to do bad. What Avraham Avinu did, Avraham Avinu chose to do Akedas Yitzchak, meaning he was doing Mesiris Nefesh to be Moisa himself HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning he took his free will to be Meshabed, his Ritzoinus, his will to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is the koyach that everyone in Am Yisrael has to be moised nefesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where does that come from? It comes from the Akedas Yitzchak, from the fact that Avraham Avinu was willing to be shabbat himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is always the tzafon in the Korbanos. That's what's coming to Miramis. It's coming to show us that schus of Mesirus Nefesh that Avraham had in Akedas Yitzchak. Says the Meshech Chochmah, that is the reason that specifically it says by tzoin, because the animal that was by Akedas Yitzchak was a tzoin. It was a ram. So that's why Davka ben Tzoin mentioned tzafon. And from there you learn to ben bakar, which wasn't in Akedas Yitzchak. Adrabah, the ben bakar reminds us of Chet HaEgel. That's why Meferish, it says tzafon regarding Akedas Yitzchak, Lashon tzafon, that was in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to mekabel the Korbanos for the Mesiris Nefesh of Avraham. Continues Meshech Chochmah to explain the hemshech of our daf, that it says that by ben oif, the Gemara says you can't learn a bird from an animal, because by a bird, there's no kli, you don't have to shecht with a kli. Says the Meshech Chochmah Gevaldik, because by Akedas Yitzchak it says, Vayikach ha'ma'acheres lichchad b'noi. And that is the source of the fact you need to have a kli when you do shchita. So b'noi, if it doesn't have a ma'acheres, b'noi, the Gemara understands in the Havamina, is not similar to Akedas Yitzchak, and that's why the Gemara has that side, that maybe you can learn from here tzafon. It concludes the Meshech Chochmah, that's another Nekud in our daf. The Gemara says, what about Seir Nachshoin? The Seir the Nesim brought in the beginning of the Mishkan. So it says the Gemara, you don't need tzafon. Says the Meshech Chochmah, why not? Because if all tzafon is to remind you of Mesiris Nefesh of Akedas Yitzchak, by Nachshon you don't have to have that, because Nachshon already did his own Mesiris Nefesh by jumping into Yam Suf. So he doesn't need the tzafon to remind us of Akedas Yitzchak. This last Nekud Meshech Chochmah was a little hard to understand, because here Nachshon is not referring to Nachshon only, it's referring to all the Nisim. So maybe then the last Nekud needs more birur. Another mahalach that we find in Divrei Rabbeinu is that tzafon is Lashon tzafun, referring to the Yetzer Hara, which is hidden in the heart of a person. So the Chassidus Sofer says like this. He says that when you have by oilah, you can have a ben tzoin or a ben bakar. It says ben tzoin comes for hirurei alev, for bad thoughts, while ben bakar comes for on esse and lois nitek lease, on a maise. So that's why he mentioned tzafon dafka by tzoin, because that comes for hirurei alev, because tzafa is lashon tzafun, referring to the Yetzer Hara, which is in the heart of a person. And the same halach is brought down in the Shem Shmuel, Pashat Tzav, Tafresh Ayin Aleph. And he says the name of his father, the Avnei Nezer, that's the reason that tzafon is mentioned by oilah, not by chatos. Because oilah is coming for hirurei alev. Chatos is coming for a maise. you want to refer to tzafar, lashon tzafun, what's hidden in the heart of a person, the Yetzer Hara, I specifically talk about Olah, not by chatos. So say both the Chas v'Sofer and the Shem Shmuel. So if so why in the end we hold the chatos does come in the tzafin? If it's not coming from Yehurim, it's coming from Maaseh. So they both answer the same answer. They say we know that Korban Chatos comes from a Maaseh, which Maaseh shoygig. A person will not make a mistake and do an averi b'shoygig unless there's something wrong in his heart. If he did not have hihuri ha'lev, if he did not have hishteikikus and will to do the avera, he would not do the averi b'shoygig. So that's why because the oil comes from Yehurim, and chatos, even though apparently comes on a maaseh, but really the source of that maaseh is coming from Yehurim, and that's why you need to have also korban chatos in the tzafon in the north. Adds the Shem Shmuel. But what's the problem if a person wants to do an avera? Didn't we learn that a person should say the reason why I'm not eating chazer is not because I don't want to. I want to, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu told me not to. So a person wants to do an avera, he says, I want to do the avera, but I'm not doing it because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told me not to. So isn't that a great milah? Why are we bringing a kapara for that? Answers the Shem Shmuel based on the Even Ezra. The Even Ezra explained, how can he say lo yisachmid, not to be jealous? Because if a person knows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said this is not yours, it means it doesn't belong to him at all. He will have no taiva, no reason to be jealous. Says the Shem Shmuel, the same thing is over here. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that this is asur, this is prohibited, so immediately there will be no will to do it. And what he quoted before means if the Torah would not write it, then we really would want it. But now the Torah is said not to do it. For us, it's not even an option to want it. So immediately that's the reason that a person has to have kapara on Yehurim of Korban Chatos. And that's why it has to be b'tzafon, lashon tzafun. Anyone who wants to join or sponsor the Shomachshava Shiurim, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.